Guys, this is Those Guys with your host, Matt Marrero, along with your other host,
Stish Ram. Good evening.
We're doing Steven Universe.
Why did you do that in like a fucking Gravity Falls voice?
Really? I'm happy you thought Gravity Falls. I was thinking more, just Professor Farnsworth. You know, just generally just...
Oh, okay. No, I thought
just
like...
general, just Futurama. No. Well, okay, yeah, no, I can see that. But not Professor Farnsworth. It's the Futurama just, welcome to the world of tomorrow. Frank, you really have to do that for everybody. But yeah, so
my only regret
doing...
is that I have bonitis.
What?
Damn it, you haven't seen that episode.
No. But anyway, we're doing Maximum Capacity and Marble Madness today, which are episodes 43 and 44.
Littered with references
and here we are.
To everything ever.
I like these two episodes a lot. And also something that I'm happy with is the fact that, we're moving forward relatively quickly with our Steven Universe podcast. We'll be caught up, very quickly, I would assume. But for any of you guys listening in the archives, it means nothing. Seriously, it just means nothing. So,
I feel like at this point we don't have to say that anymore because they just don't care.
I think that's a running joke, and I think if no one has ever heard it before...
in the archives, and they're really mad at you. They're like, you know what, fuck you, I'm going to stop listening in the archives because you just won't shut up about it.
And then they go to our site, and then they see that it's on a T-shirt, and they're like, why the fuck did they put that entire sentence on a T-shirt? And why is it their number one selling T-shirt on their site?
I would do that because, I would do that for a shirt and just have it go onto the back.
You mean it actually go onto the back, like the entire sentence wraps around?
Yes.
I understand that. I
get
it.
Just start on the front. And if you're listening to us in the archives, ... none of this matters to you on the back. And just keep writing in smaller print.
Oh, my God. But anyway, so, yeah, speaking of these episodes, I found it very interesting because, first off, right, the first episode, as always, the recent trend of, but it's filler. It's not around the main Peridot plot, so it's meaningless. Farthest thing from, and I know we've said that about the last two, so you might, be a little wary if you're just like, I don't know if I trust them. No, this is meaningful. As much as I love the last two episodes.
This is Maximum Capacity first, right?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Yeah,
so as much as I love,
a lot of weird emotions in this episode for me, watching it. And I think when we first saw it, we spent a lot of time talking about it, trying to analyze, what our perspectives on the episode were. Because, although we haven't been podcasting about this, as a episode-by-episode basis compared to when the show's released, you and I talk about the show a lot. And we did watch it
really
pretty much, weekly.
Yes,
I swear to God,
funny.
if you say something about the archives again, I'm going to kick your ass.
No. I really find it funny because of the fact that you and I will talk about it, and I'll sit there and I'll walk around, and I'll swear to God, I'll be like, no, we talked about it already on air, but we didn't. We just had these phone conversations.
I had this thought about Maximum Capacity because Maximum Capacity is one of the episodes we discussed at length outside of the podcast, and I sat there.
But
and
on the phone,
did we fucking podcast about that? Yeah, on the phone. So it made it worse because I'm sitting there we podcasted about that already. I was like, fuck, no, we had that entire conversation off air.
Yeah, no, that's just what happens, we just direct our phone conversations. That's why I really enjoy doing this, just being able to direct your phone conversations that that I'll have with friends of mine that are very knowledgeable on these subjects or on these shows, and they're really true fans, but on the air. It's that simple for me.
We were debating, I think, the major part of this episode, the idea of what the Greg Amethyst relationship was like before Rose.
Yeah.
Or what the Rose Amethyst relationship was like before Greg. That kind of situation.
Right. And I'll change my answer from what I told you before, but it still turns into an unrequited love, I guess, if you want to say that,
so are you favoring more like the stuff I was trying to argue the night of, or?
Well, no, I thought you were arguing the idea that both sides had romantic feelings for one another.
I believe I was. Yes, because...
No. I'm not arguing that. I'm arguing that Amethyst is the one who... All right, great. Happy to hear it. My idea is that
I'm getting bored of us just, the last Steven Universe podcast sucked for us because we just complimented it for 45 minutes. And while that's
the last
cute,
two... Yeah, the last two were just, well, that's great. Man, that's also great. Happy to hear it. Happy to hear it.
Like,
Boom.
I'd want to punch me in the face from the future, to the back. Like, I know you liked it, Satish. It's like, I know, but what else do I say? It was fucking perfect. Like, Winter Forecast is perfect to me. You know, like, I can't fucking. So,
and these
it's
two
funny
episodes
like,
are really good, too.
I liked Maximum Capacity because it gave me, the first time I watched it, I think I told you the night of, because I saw it the night of and you hadn't seen it yet. I was like, it gave me uncomfortable feelings. Because it was just weird, you know, and I didn't know what to make of it, and I needed to talk to someone about it because I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
There's only one part of it that really made me feel uncomfortable, and I think that's a part that all of us, you know, felt uncomfortable about, you know, the part where Amethyst transformed into Rose. I think that was
I thought you were going to make a joke. I thought you were going to be like, well, the part where Steven pointed out that they didn't even have a cat, that really broke my heart, because continuity, people.
I was actually worried that he was going to throw it and you were going to hear meow.
And the cat's still in there.
Yes.
No,
I feel like they were thinking it, but someone said no, they couldn't. Legally, it's like, no, sorry, we can't do that.
No, that would be animal abuse, and they don't support that.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But yeah,
I feel like one person.
That moment was really uncomfortable, and you can tell Amethyst felt really bad about it after because of the end result the next day. But oh my God, like she went there.
Yeah.
And like it makes sense for her character to go there because it's so weird to say younger, but she's younger than the rest and she's prone to be more immature. Not saying youth means immaturity, but she's portrayed as immature, partially because of her upbringing and her youth. And so she's the one who's going to hit something like that really hard without thinking about it first. And then after sit there like, oh my God, that was out of line.
Especially because Greg was there, so it was kind of just, you know, once Steven was there, I think it kind of clicked in her. But at first it was just because it's weird because, yeah, she can get into arguments with people, but I think she does understand the, you know, certain things, like the idea that, oh, I would never do something like that to Steven. But Greg, being a grown human being, you know, it's just, and they have that playfulness, whatever, she'll screw with him, especially because they were in a fight and he technically egged her on by saying, no, you wouldn't. So it's one of those things where it's like weird. It's just the idea of like, I don't know, like, it's don't get angry, Satish. I wasn't,
Yeah, he did kind of egg her on, unintentionally, I believe. But he did.
Oh, of course.
Fine, then I'm going to freaking do it. And, you know, it was a really tough situation, and it was not what I expected from the episode because, like, it was wrapped around in this kind of, like, dorky, charming, like, oh, let's watch a marathon an old show that we used to love, you know?
Yes.
Because, I mean, that was the premise, I believe. It was the day before New Year's, and they were cleaning out?
Yes, it was. It was New Year's cleaning, and it was really funny. You know, a lot of fun stuff went into this. I mean, the fact that, you know, one of Steven's lines was just, oh, man, you know, it's waiting for these fireworks is crazy. It's felt like it's been a whole year. And Greg's like, well, that's understandable, little buddy. Like, you didn't really know what to do. So, it you know, it goes on from there, and we end up having, you know, a lot of fun Amethyst stuff. And, you know, we have, apparently Greg does not remember the grounding for 1,000 years thing, which is hilarious.
Yeah, because I guess it's like one of those things where, like, subtly he's not the best parent in the world, but forgetting about that ridiculous 1,000-year grounding is kind of like, okay. Because at some point you would think that as a human, your grounding would be over at a human pace.
Yes. Also, just, you know, books are cool again. That, too, was funny. And also, by the way, the romance novel, which it was more adult, but still there are, like, a decent amount of adult romance novels, right? So adult romance novel. I loved it because it was subverting, or just, rather, it was twisting things around, where it was an alien woman holding a man who looked very faint, right? But it looked like the standard. It looked like the standard of.
I laughed so fucking hard. I just couldn't help it because in my head he reads like alien erotica, and I'm totally okay with that. And I was like, you know what?
To be fair, he married. He was.
That's what
I'm
saying.
Mr. Universe.
That's why it made me laugh so much because like the fucking guy whose music gimmick is space is reading alien erotica, and I didn't even bat an eyelash. I was like, yep.
Who married an alien and gave birth to a child with an alien. So
like,
to be fair,
it makes perfect freaking sense.
That's what sucks, right? From a continuity perspective, it's just, damn, that actually makes sense.
Like, that's hilarious to me. And if you didn't pick that up the first time, it's okay, because you can understand why that's funny now.
I didn't pick it up because I was too busy focusing on the fact that they twisted the idea of, you know, the man holding the woman and all that stuff to flip it around where the man and the woman look exactly the same if they had been flipped. But no, they flipped them around so it's this giant Amazonian woman, who does have 4 arms, by the way, where 2 of her arms are, like, I think holding swords, and then the other 2 arms are holding him. And he's buff and ripped open, you know, white shirt, but very faint. And you can see it in his cheeks, which are red.
Doubly funny because I guess looking back on this with new knowledge, like, this is a very, very minor spoiler, but Greg likes bigger women.
That's not really a spoiler necessarily.
I don't know, but it's mentioned later on. They usually get on me for the littlest things, so I get worried.
Okay. Well,
I mean, the other episodes haven't happened yet, Satish, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I won't state anything, sir.
Well, to be fair, I mean, you know, if you want to go with the theory, that, you know, Greg and Amethyst were sort of a thing, or there was some type of possible thing there. I mean, Amethyst being a bigger woman, and then Rose being.
I was just going to make a joke about the fact that he's reading about Amazon alien women who are large. That's why I thought erotica.
That too.
That too. I'm just saying.
Also, by the way, Greg has a deed to his uncle's mansion in there. I want to point that out.
Which, you know, he misplaced.
Apparently, because in his garage, it's just, you know, hey, look, I found this. Is it the deed to my uncle's mansion? What? You could have been living in a mansion. It's so Greg. That's the point. It's so fucking Greg.
I think he
could have been living in a mansion.
Yeah, something like that is very subtle, and I like it because it shows what Greg values in life. Because,
yeah, exactly.
Like, if he had to go live in the mansion, he would be away from his son.
Exactly.
So he'd rather live in a van and be near his son than go actually pursue this mansion that he apparently has entitled to him. Like, that means a lot to me. I think that's very subtle. But, like, it's that kind of stuff. And that makes sense for his character because his character is not interested in that kind of shit as long as he can be near his son.
See, that's what I like. I like that a series like this is able to make those jokes that many consider stupid one-liners that'll happen in something, let's say, like Family Guy or even like The Simpsons. However, they aren't away from the character. You know, like you're not going to have, you know, Greg make a joke that will be at Steven's expense. Like, basically like a ha-ha, you little shit kind of joke. He would never.
It's also a thing where, like, it feels like the show rewards us for thinking a lot. And I think you know what I mean by that. Like, the idea that, like, you know, we sit here and we formulate theories, and, you know, Gravity Falls and Steven Universe, we formulate theories, we think a lot of stuff going on, and the show I think, like, they're part of this new influx that rewards us for sitting there and analyzing everything. Because they're realizing, like, and this is, you know, again, credit to the producers and the writers and everything, that the internet exists. Like,
exactly. I was mentioning this on the last show, Steven Universe show that we did. Just the idea that a younger staff, younger blood, you know, I'm not saying that older people can't use the internet, can't use things like Tumblr or other, you know, social media, but it really feels like, you know, this young blood, they just get the fans and they understand because while they are older than us, it still isn't that far off some, I feel, you know, especially because we're in our mid-20s ourselves.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, somewhat significant for us because you look at something just very quickly. The name of the next episode is Marble Madness, which is a reference to a 1984 NES game. 1984 isn't too far back off us. Like, yes, they're a little bit older than us, but, like, you know what I'm saying. Like, it's there. Like, that's right around our time. So, you know, these are young-blooded people, and they think like us. And, so part of me is commending them for thinking like me, and I'll admit to that. That's partially my bias. But I do think, because I'm not going to lie about that. You know, I can identify the fact that I'm sitting there, like, rewarding them mentally for thinking like me. Right, I am.
But to be fair,
I acknowledge this is what I think is a successful model for creating a show.
Yes, because to think, because I mentioned this, I don't remember which show it was, either Gravity Falls or Steven Universe, but I mentioned the idea that, you know, if you're going to tell me, right, kids will eat up anything we give them, then why try to make something exclusive for kids, right? Why not try to make something that, all right, you already got the kids because they'll eat up everything you give to them, apparently, right? Because they're mindless drones, apparently, right? According to, these statistics or what certain people are trying to tell you about the demographics. Oh, kids, they'll just eat them. All right. But how do you get everyone else? Because there's a way to get everyone else. I mean,
you just said there's a way.
Yeah, because you look at Gravity Falls, you look at Steven Universe, they're both on Disney XD and Cartoon Network. Channels that for some, I'm not going to say for everyone, but for some, immediately it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm not looking at that after, once I'm above a certain age, unless I'm, let's say, looking at Cartoon Network's late night, right, Adult Swim lineup, or if you're looking at Disney XD, you can hear the rumblings of, not even rumblings, it's confirmed, Doctor Who is coming, right? So that's definitely going to draw some people over a certain age, and of course under a certain age, into Disney XD that may not have before. But still, the idea that, Disney XD, not so much over a certain age. Not saying that it's right, not saying that it's wrong, it's just that that is how some people feel. So the idea is, if they're going to leave, how do we get them back in? Even if it's just for one show, right? It's still a show, it's still ratings, it's still on your network. If not through ratings, it's through video on demand, it's through, this or this or this. The general word of mouth, how do we get people to continue watching? And a show like this is just perfect. And I think Cartoon Network overall has gotten that with many of their shows. I haven't really seen Adventure Time or regular show, but I've heard great things from people who are over the age of 10 or, like 12. So, I've heard things from people like, oh, no, I really like this show, and they aren't that particular original demographic, I would feel, like what they thought what the demographic would be.
Yeah, so, because it's funny. Yeah. When you look at Steven Universe, right?
Right.
I would argue that the general, the demographic is not children but us.
It's weird.
I know that's a weird argument to take up, right? But I feel like there's so much in there for us that what they did was, instead of making a children's show more expansive, they took a show for us and decided to make it more expensive to kids. I'm not trying
weird.
to get philosophical here.
I can see that.
Disagree.
I can see that. However, I think it's more of just an 80s style, where it's just, hey, this is going to be on a network for children, which means that we're not going to do A, B, and C, but that doesn't mean that we can't do D, E, and F, which D, E, and F are just, certain plot devices that might be a bit more, it's funny, right? The word adult. Many people think adult, they think, pornographic, they think, violence, gore. But really all it could mean is just a bit more, a bit of a more cohesive story, a lot, less things being dropped and, plot devices being thrown away, or just general things that, making it maybe, even though I don't want to say this is childish, a bit less episodic, right? So people can, even though like Steven Universe can be episodic, there is some kind of, something to it, right? There is some kind of web to it. Same thing with Gravity Falls, right? Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, both having some kind of web to it, even though certain episodes will be, just standalone, but they'll always have that one little thing, for the most part, that extends some kind of plot, even if it's just a plot of, let's say, the subplots of, Connie and Steven, or, just Greg and Steven and things like that. Or apparently Ronaldo and Lars now. With their like little friendship thing, their ex-friendship thing. Lars and Sadie. A lot of nice subplots, I think. Which is really good with the show, that the show does as well, where it's not the main plot with Peridot, but it's still something we can always go to. So anyway, point is that I can't completely disagree with you, but at the same time it feels weird because I don't know how to feel about it. Because I just feel like it's a thing where it's just the general, okay, how sometimes, let's say with certain video games, the words E for everyone feels like a death sentence for people our age, because E for everyone is kind of like it's not that it's fun, right? It's that it's more like, let's say like Elmo, like an Elmo game. Nothing wrong with Elmo, by the way. Love Elmo. But an Elmo game where it's kind of like, E for everyone means more like an Elmo game rather than a Steven Universe game, which is just something that everyone can enjoy based on plot, based on, action, based on jokes. Anyone can enjoy and kind of follow in their own different way. Steven Universe, Gravity Falls. But I feel like...
So let me humor me then here on this topic. Because
sure.
Would you then say, with the classification I gave, Would you be more inclined to agree that Gravity Falls is like that than Steven Universe?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Strangely enough.
Not strangely enough. Based on what you said, I'm like, okay, so listening to that, he probably thinks Gravity Falls is more like that, because Gravity Falls has a lot more adult themes and a lot more pushing the boundaries of things, where it's like the blood,
which is nothing
the horror,
wrong. Which is nothing wrong with Steven Universe.
But I just wanted to know if you would think that, because I think both shows are like that. On a personal level, I think both shows are like that, and I think
just in different ways.
Yeah, completely. I think that Steven Universe appeals to a group of people like you and me who can sit there and be like, oh my God, this story is amazing, and I'm in love with it. And all the subtleties that we appreciate, the music aspect of it, which I think is a plus, So there's a lot for us, I think, in there. And I would make the argument, but I can see why you disagree. But I was just thinking that because something like Maximum Capacity, I guess swinging it back here, it's, all right, Little Butler, there's a lot of references there. Some of them maybe like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I think of Webster.
Yep, there we go. That's the other one.
Yeah.
I'm like, yep, Webster.
You know what's really funny? I can only think of Webster, but from Turk saying it. Talking about Webster in Scrubs, where he's like, baby, Webster gets all into the pancake mix.
And I mean all into
into the pancake mix.
I don't think this has ever been mentioned on air, but Scrubs is my favorite TV show. I don't think this has ever been mentioned on air.
I think you have. Because we talk about it a decent amount.
We've been podcasting so much that by the law of averages, I probably should have. But
so all right. So speaking of the idea that
Little
also,
Butler and just
Little Butler. I love Little Butler because it really did feel like just a lot of 90s sitcoms like rolled into one. It felt so much like it. What?
We were able to pinpoint okay, maybe some Fresh Prince, some Webster, right? But it wasn't a direct reference to everything. It was kind of this all-encompassing 90s sitcom joke that we all kind of
Full
understood.
House. It just kind of little, was it The Nanny? It just was all, everything was wrapped into one in such a brilliant way that I sat there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they just decided, let's buy up a show that no one ever heard of, and let's animate it. Because it felt real. Little Butler feels real.
That's the thing. It really amazed me that they were able to, in a couple minutes, basically make me feel like they referenced every show in the 90s without referencing anything at all.
Every sitcom in the 90s without referencing anything, and just somehow make it feel legitimate. Because it really feels like they just bought the show from some German, maybe Germany did it. I don't know, just some other place that we just don't know about that made the show.
It's very easy to believe this was a show.
Yeah.
I agree.
And just also with Little Butler's really long catchphrase, which is something that I would have done had I been making a parody. Just, man, just what was it? Wow, you people have so much money. You people have too much money. Yeah, I would just do something like that because it fits, but it's so long.
Are you thinking in comparison to something like Bazinga?
Well, no, not even just that. I mean, I don't know, like, what you're talking about, Willis, I guess that's also a large one. But still, just generally, I don't know why it feels...
In this podcast, Matt is forced to overcome his realization that all of the old catchphrases he used to like are relatively long.
Did Fresh Prince have one? I don't think Will Smith had one.
No, but it was the entire theme song, which we all appreciated.
Right. But, I remember once he said parents just don't understand, which was really funny.
Yes.
Because that was one of his songs. But no, it's really funny because I guess they are long. But to me, it just felt like it would be even longer. You're
like kind of the 3 words or less guy. You want 3 words or less. So.
Yes, but I feel like I would make it longer for the sake of humor.
You'd be fine with something like, I don't know, it's morphing time. But you have an issue with something like, you people have too much money.
Yeah, exactly. It
breaks the 3-word problem. I understand. I get it.
All jokes aside, no, it's funny because you're trying to be like, I got one on Matt.
Totally fine
that's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm saying. You're just like, haha, I got one on the old Matt. It's like, no, I agree completely. It's morphing time.
I'm being legit. You like it's morphing time. That's not
because
even
it's
bullshit.
so quick. because it's so quick. And most transformation
and
phrases.
It's 3 words. And you mentioned what you're talking about, Willis, and that's like essentially 3 words. Because what you're talking about kind of counts as like 2 words. Just
because like, all right, no, because think about it, right? The words, like, let's say they were trying to transform, and instead of like it's morphin time, it's like, okay, guys, it's time to transform every single episode.
I would die.
It would, like, exactly, like you can say the sentence, okay, guys, it's time to transform, it's morphin time, but to actually say like your catchphrase to make everything, change into turn into Rangers or whatever it is you are. Just
so was
it's time to transform, guys.
Was Gotta Catch 'Em All a problem for you? Or
no, because he never even said it.
Okay.
Think about it. He didn't say it in the show.
No,
it was just the tagline.
I'm just trying to think this out here. I need to analyze your life here and think about.
What's really? Hey, guess what?
Okay.
To be fair, the Japanese version was 3 words. Geto dase. Technically, it was 3 words. So I'm okay with it.
I assume you were fine with believe it.
We don't discuss that. I'm fine with believe it.
He was fine with believe it.
We don't discuss that. I was,
or
but we don't
yet,
discuss that.
He was fine with Date Bayo. But
it's 1 word.
Exactly.
It is 1 word.
That's why it's even better.
Satish, did you order a baby? I love the sentence, did any of you order a baby? It happened. It was there.
It's not the first time I've seen his junk. I mean...
That one was interesting.
See,
that's
that
the
was
one where I'll give you that one line.
With you.
Yeah, I'll give you one line where I'm like, but Amethyst is very crass, but I think it is one of those things where there are certain, to be very fair, I don't know how that line got through. Like, there are certain Gravity Falls lines that I'll sit there and I'll think, how did that get through? But I will admit, Disney and Disney XD, they're being a little loosey-goosey nowadays with some of their stuff. But yeah, very interesting to find out the process behind the line that, just, that's just all my old junk.
Obvious innuendo. And it was something that made me wonder, like, can I use that as part of my argument or not? Because I felt kind of weird. I'm like, how,
Yeah, no, like, it's just really weird because I don't know, I wonder if they had to get, test groups of kids.
Yeah,
when you say the words, I think you're drunk.
Noise.
I was also like,
I think to
that
kids,
was my noise.
The idea of, saying, oh, I've seen your junk, it doesn't hit them the way that it hits us. That's one of them that... But we totally knew what it meant.
Yeah, I was confused, but I really don't, I just think that she was just being crass. Again, I feel like it was very one-sided. If it was ever anything between her and Greg, she, wanted Greg, and then Greg met Rose, and then bam. But, to be fair, maybe she has seen his junk. By accident. It can happen.
No, but think about it. I don't even know if she's referring to that.
I feel like she would be, but because it was totally an accident. Think about how Amethyst is, sneaky, runs around, whatever. Just be like, Amethyst, you don't walk into a bathroom.
I believe it.
Something like that. That's what I'm saying. I imagine it to be more of a comedic, whoops, I'm not human. I didn't realize that you were walking in here to do whatever that is. Just, Amethyst, stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I imagine it more like that rather than just, this romantic thing. I don't know why. I just don't really see it between the two of them.
I get it. Over time, I guess I've thought more about because of what I've seen from, let's say, the Greg and Rose stuff, that I'm more inclined to agree that there wasn't anything there, but just the idea that Amethyst was upset that Greg kind of took Rose away from.
And vice versa. Because in a way,
Rose
it's
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, both. I'm not saying one or the other. I'm saying both. Because you can see that sometimes, with certain friends, maybe, but, not losing friends, but the idea that, if you're friends with, let's say, 2 sides of a couple that become a couple, they might go off and be a couple, and then you're like, Now, it's not saying that, a couple is just going to leave, but whatever. But the idea that sometimes it can happen a bit, where it's like, oh, now instead of the three of us hanging out, they're going out on a date. And even that one little date is still a date, literally a day, away from that person.
Right.
Right? So I can understand it from both sides, where, the idea that she might be looking at Rose thinking, oh, man, I lost Rose, and then because, Greg has her, and then looking at Greg going, damn it, now I lost Greg because Rose has him, and looking at Garnet and Pearl and going, I'm not really a fan of you two.
This sounds like an endless cycle of abuse. I don't like it.
It's okay.
No, but
yeah.
So you can tell, I guess, because we try to split this up between the half hours, that there was some animosity. Just the idea
most definitely.
of
most definitely.
You took away. So
yeah.
And it's so hard because, I can understand it. I mean, it seems like there was an attachment from Amethyst to Greg, just the idea. I mean, there are just little things, I think, explored that show that they were always really attached to one another. And then, obviously, Amethyst and Rose had a really strong relationship. So,
yeah. And also, the idea and the idea that, she is upset that Rose is gone, but in no way resenting Steven, which is a great thing, because she does not resent Steven for living, because that's not what this show tries to do at all. If this show ever did that, it would basically be the idea of, well, this person is turning into a bad character, like a bad guy or a bad person. They're on the opposite side, or that something. Because the show does not do that with its main characters. It does depth, but it does not do this kind of edge of just like, I hate you for living. No. Love you for living.
Steven
but we
so
lost.
Young that the idea of saying something like that could really damage him. Like, even in a TV show, I just wouldn't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. But I understand the concept of, hey, she's gone. So that's the thing. It's the idea of saying, oh, no, she's gone, versus, oh, yeah, you're alive, Ugh. It's just no, none of that whatsoever. And so something interesting, two really funny things I want to mention. Well, no, one funny thing that I want to mention. I mentioned last podcast, oh, yeah, Ronaldo, does he work at the fry place? I love how they try to remind me. Like, don't worry, Matt. We'll remind you. Because I forgot what the kid's name was. Petey? Yeah, Petey. Was just like, hey, Ronaldo. And I was like, damn it. Because I know you proved me wrong in the last episode, but it was great how the show had to rub it in my face. It's not like you have to prove me wrong and just be like, oh, no, Matt, he does work there. Oh, thank you. Just as a nice, simple little exchange. Why, thank you,
right.
Mr. Ram. Oh, we're up, Miss Marrero. No, it's the show going,
fine.
Hey, Matt.
The show is like, dude,
hey, Matt.
How could you fucking forget?
Yeah, just right in my fucking face.
It's just like, hey, do you remember his last name, Mr. Marrero? It's Fryman, as in the men who handle fries. Where could he work, Matt?
Oh, my God.
They did it for me. I didn't even need to do that. That was all there for you in this episode.
It really was. Oh, God. And something I found interesting. So from the looks of it, from very little bits of information, very little, it looks like Petey has OCD.
It also seems like he's getting older, by the way. His voice actor is getting older, so you can hear the older, I think you can hear.
Oh, I didn't notice it. Okay, I can see your point. I didn't notice it too much because he still has that something about him, but I think I get you.
Steven, too, where, there's just a little bit more bass in the voice.
Yes. Steven, you can notice only when you go back far enough, but on a weekly basis, especially with the way they were cutting episodes up, in terms of air dates, you couldn't tell. But when you go back in Marathon, it's very noticeable that he both gets older and gets more comfortable with the role. They all have. So they've now, while still being great actors, and actresses, they have become comfortable with their roles enough to stick to one voice. You can also tell this with, let's say, Simpsons, where in the first season or two, they, again, still great actors and actresses at this point. But in Simpsons, they were definitely trying to get used to their voices, so they were shifting between, this and this and this, really doing more of a broad vocal thing. Same thing with Mark Hamill a bit, where you hear him in Batman the Animated Series. Sure, in, let's say, Arkham Asylum, he's meant to be older, but even in Arkham Asylum, he still has this one voice, right? Where in the original Batman animated series, you can tell that it's Britishy, but it fluctuates. There's just something different about it, and it feels like it's just him just doing this other voice that isn't his own, but it isn't just one kind of vocal tone. No, it's just a lot of different. Where with, again, New Joker, it's more, a lot deeper, and a little bit of, like, just kind of this older, raspier thing to it. Yes. But anyway, so jumping back into Steven Universe, yeah, he has OCD, which is so interesting, and I really enjoy it because the fact that you're being able to represent all kinds of people, I think, even in just the minute things. Like, you're going to have an entire episode dedicated to Petey having OCD, I feel, but you're just going to have that little tiny thing right there where, like, people with OCD, they just get it, and they attach themselves like, whoa, that's me being represented. But it's not the idea of just, an entire TV show, which is nothing wrong with an entire TV show being dedicated to someone who has OCD, but just the little things of just like, oh, hey, he has this, but we're not going to focus on it. Like, oh, no, what are we going to do about Petey's OCD? Like, no, it's there. It's just, it's small, but Stevie doesn't get it. The kids don't get it, but we're sitting there like, oh, that's a sentence, the idea of, it was a sentence where he said, oh, yeah, my dad said to scrub him 2 times, but I scrubbed him 3 times. And I thought, oh, because he needs to be clean. He goes, 2's, like, even numbers are just weird. Odd numbers are a lot better. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to diagnose based on that alone, but it's totally something where I understand where you're coming from.
Well, I know. I don't want to. You're right. I shouldn't diagnose just from that alone. No, but it's the idea that
I get it too, dude.
It's because if he said something like, "Oh,"
no, because I sit there and be like, "Does PD have OCD?" Like, that's what.
Yes. I just think that it's a lot. It's an interesting character trait, I think, without having to go deep into does PD have OCD. We're gonna bring him to the doctor to find out. It's like all this stuff that you would just a little tiny reference of instead of him saying, "Oh, it's because I want to make sure it's clean." Just these numbers. They're really weird to me, and I can never do them. These numbers, though, they're fine. And I sat there, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, like as a concept. And, again, very small. I don't want to take a lot of time on it, but it was just very interesting. Just kind of throw that out there. And, again, just very interesting. Another interesting thing that I found was Stephen being so insightful, at the end, that speech that he gave, right? But at the same time, I'm sorry. I'm only laughing because it really is. I'm thinking about it. He's missing the little things, right? So he's able to help them, Amethyst and both Greg, from a you should be cleaning standpoint, but not from the possible other things involved. So he has this great speech that is all-encompassing, but he focuses on the wrong thing.
I don't think so.
Not necessarily. Well, okay.
Because
I mean, like,
essentially the idea is you got to let go of the past.
Right. No, I said it's all-encompassing, but I think he specifically was focusing more so on because he mentions the cleaning, like out of nowhere. Like, Steven, that's not completely relevant.
Well, that's the thing. Remember, he's hurt because his dad was supposed to clean, and then they were supposed to watch fireworks together.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to acknowledge the fact that he's hurt because he didn't get to watch fireworks with his dad.
Right.
So he is focused on the cleaning a little bit because it's like, you should have cleaned and we could have watched the fucking fireworks together, Dad.
Right. So, sorry, I may have missed half the speech in rewatching, but he did mention the fact of Amethyst not, and Greg not having this feud or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I must have remissed it while taking notes in my...
No, it's not perfect. I'm not going to sit there and argue that it is. But I think there's, the idea that you got to let go of the past, too, is there.
Yes.
And it's very insightful for someone of his, 10 to 12?
Which is true.
I always forget.
Which is true.
He's 10, right?
He should be 10.
Dipper is 12, and I always use that as
Dipper and Mabel are 12, yeah. Yes.
Because in my head,
Dipper,
I'm like, 13, practically a teen. Nope, that's not right. He was 12.
Right, yeah, Dipper, yeah. Gravity Falls stuff. But, yes, so... again, before we move on, just want to quickly mention, Amethyst turning into Rose, disturbing. Like, I really find that disturbing. Just having someone turn into, and she's good at, she's good at transforming into almost anyone if she can see them. It's just the idea of just copying that shape. But
no, but I mean, she got the gem and everything, and I was like, oh, man.
Yeah. No, just the idea of transforming into someone who's dead. It's just, ooh. Like, it's freaky when you... It's usually freaky when... It's weird. It's a freaky thing, right? Obviously. But it becomes freakier, I think, when you really try to put yourself into that situation of just imagine seeing someone, even though you know it's a replica, of someone that you loved that is dead. It's just, ugh. You know, it's one of those things where I don't think it meant to be that disturbing. But, I mean, it meant to be, of course, unsettling and upsetting. But I think, again, for, like, you and I who are older and we can really just sit there and think about it, you know, it's like, oh, God. Like, that's one of those things that, you know, a bit like you mentioned when we were doing Horror Club, where it was just, oh, you know, I'll admit when something's scary, right? Like, I'm not scared by a lot of things, but I'll admit when something is scary. I feel like this would scare you, and it did.
Not scare me, but it definitely gave me a world of negative feelings where I was like, whoa.
Okay.
That's not cool. Don't do that to people. Like, because, I mean, like, I've lost people close to me, so, like, the idea of, like, someone, like, mimicking them or stuff like that, like, it's just horrific.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I was, because I've lost two, I'll say this to you, it threw me off when you first started the sentence because it sounded like you were going to be like, I've dealt with people transforming before. Like, I was really confused as to where it was going because that happens a lot with you and I.
I don't think I would reveal that on air. Like, the people from the mental hospital would just be like, Mr. Ram, I don't believe your treatment is complete. We need you back.
I'd be so excited. I'd be like, we had people listening, Satish. We had fans.
It's the people
Strangely,
from the
fans
mental hospital.
You know, we had fans. We had fans at Mount Sinai, but whatever. We had fans. Whatever.
I picked a random hospital in New York.
They have a
It's really funny because
thing?
I used to work at one of them, so I think it's really funny that of all the ones, like the hospitals, like you picked the one I used to work at. But
that's interesting. But they know you there. That's why they're listening. They're like, oh, great, let's listen to this petition. And they're like, wow, these rantings. I don't know if we should. They're talking about the Steven Galaxy character that doesn't exist. It's on TV right behind you.
Steven Galaxy.
Well, of course they get it wrong. They don't know what they're talking about.
No, I just like Steven Galaxy. Steven's fine, but universe is too much.
Yes. No, I mean, think about it. He's only 10. He's not even a universe yet. He's a galaxy. He's a little galaxy.
That's kind of cute. I'll give you that for creativity.
Okay. But anyway, so moving forward, so this episode, Marble Madness, it was really cute, and I think, but it was really, it's one of those things where
was animated
it was cute.
Weird.
How so?
There were some of the reaction faces and stuff felt over-exaggerated to me.
Interesting.
I think it may, okay, no, I didn't get to rewatch this one tonight before we watched. So it may just be a random thought, but I remember, like, watching this, and the animation for some of the reaction faces felt, like, flatter or something, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
I noticed that once, but it was only with Garnet, and that's just her.
Okay, so you might know at least, it was enough to throw me off, though, where I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah, it can happen. I mean, you know, a lot of people end up working on shows like these, and, you know, and I just, you know, it's a lot of different, like, just to throw around, you know, I'm sorry, it's like certain, certain companies and things like that will, you know, will have different animators and you know, and things like that. So I assume that might be why. I really don't know. I can't, you know, tell you this on air, sadly.
It was just one of those things where I was thinking, like, do you remember when we used to get so much information about Gravity Falls, I would be able to tell you, like, hey, Matt, this is this person's, like, first episode.
Yes.
You know, like, this is their first shot at animation.
It could be a situation like that.
So in my head, it felt like, oh, they're letting some new people try to animate.
Possibly. But I will admit, with Garnet, it made sense. But anyway, before we get to that, I really enjoyed the fact that this episode had plot, but it had enough side stuff to really be fun. Where, mind you, plot's great, right? But, of course, you know, they had a lot of stuff with Steven and Connie that I think was beautiful. And it was so relevant to us in real life that it was brilliant. You know, first off, the fact that there's a Sabrina the Teenage Witch, you know, parody. I consider it on the surface level. I don't know about it once you read it and everything. Once you read it and everything, it expands into something completely different. But from the surface level, it felt like Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Right? And then, right, all of a sudden we get into Paradox Machines, and I mentioned Garnet and her reaction. It was so cute because I just love how Garnet is able to show emotion overall, right? Because she does it calmly. You know, she feels things like joy and playfulness, but she's very stoic about it, and it's great. Because personally, I feel like she's becoming my favorite character. She's becoming.
Garnet?
She's not. Yeah. Because of the little ways she's able to do things like, you know, okay, like Amethyst. Hey, Pearl, I'm going to hug you. I'm going to hug you. No, don't hug me with that goop on you. All of a sudden, she hugs Garnet. And Garnet's like, screw it, I'm in. And pulls Pearl into the group hug of goop. And I laughed because I thought, oh, my God. You know, just the little things that she does where, you know, it'll be I think we did this episode where Steven was like, my name is Steven Awesome Universe or something, you know, and she was like, no, it's not, you know, it's your middle name is Cutie Pie. Yeah, little stuff like that where, I mean, she did emote, but still, general little stuff like that where it comes out of nowhere, but it's great. You know, it's not her constant personality, but it's there, and it's hilarious. Also, apparently the fact that Garnet wanted that to happen because she has future vision. So she could have avoided it. I love how we can throw future vision into this and make her seem like a good person. Like, we can use it to her advantage instead of using it to her disadvantage. Like, many people might say, oh, no, she'll see this coming or she'll see this coming. But we can use it to her advantage now and just say, hey, she saw that coming. And she thought, yes, I would like it. I would like that goop hug, you know, and I would like to bring Pearl into it. We're a family. It's really cute.
It is nice. Goop hug is also like a pun in itself, so it's like, but...
Yes, but also Connie's mother still doesn't believe that Steven's name is real. I think that's beautiful. That's a hilarious thing.
One of the subtleties that I totally understand, and it made me smile. Because it's like, you can't have, like, I've had people, like, my last name is Ram. That's not even that much out of the ordinary. But I've had people ask me, like, so what's your real last name? And I'm like, stop.
I can see that, though.
My last name, you prick.
No, because it's one of those last names that's too good to be real. I mean, when you, and I say that because the way it can be used in things like, you know, you being a guy who loves sports and you know, sometimes sports writer and scouter and all this stuff. You know, the idea of just things like Ram's Room, you know, like things like just, you know, the Ram Attack.
Yeah,
like,
no,
I can think of different show names.
It made itself, and it was really funny because we were like, what's your real last name? It's like, that is my last name. I have an ID.
Like, you had to change your name to make yourself seem more like just part of the, like, in other words, most of the time, right, it's just like, oh, you have to change your name to become a, you know, celebrity or to become this or this. You had to change your name to something more general, like Johnson. Like, you had to change it to something that just wasn't, you know, Ram. I was like, so what's your pen name? You know, not even just changing Satish. Satish Johnson.
I looked longingly into the sun. There was a day once when I used my real name, but no one believed me.
So now I'm John Johnson, and everyone will understand.
I should introduce my real name as my pet name, my pen name, just to hear people just be like, that makes sense.
Yes, you should. But anyway, so, all right. Also, by the way, the idea that, okay, when Connie was talking to Steven about reading those books, it felt like me trying to get pretty much anyone, almost anyone, into anything. Where with certain shows, because I think you know this too to a certain degree, certain shows, we have to give people like a step-by-step process of how to watch them. Like one of them that I think of is Doctor Who.
No,
immediately.
As soon as you said that, I laughed, because my first thought was that, just the idea of you sitting there like, all right, Tish, you need to watch Doctor Who. A week later. So, let me ask you something. I start with, like, the 9th Doctor, because I like the number 9.
Well, actually, you did right. You did well. That would be, you see, I love it. You inadvertently started it the right way. No, by doing it the wrong way, you would start at the 6th or the 5th. And you'd be like, again, which is from like the fucking 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Late 70s, early 80s. No, like, 80s, the 5th. So that's how you'd be wrong, essentially. Because it's like you didn't start with the 1st, which would be very hard to do, but whatever. You didn't start with the 1st, and you didn't start with the 9th, who's the one with the reboot. You just start, or even the 8th, which had a random TV movie attached to it. Yeah,
I'm
you
like
are.
actually angry.
His memory is such shit. Yeah, no, his memory is such shit that somehow your brain was like, it was just, there's like those little, I forgot what that new movie is, but it looks really funny.
I could have picked. I picked the one that actually apparently made sense.
No, but like those little people in that little girl's head. I don't know what the movie is, but it's a Disney film, I believe, and it's really, really funny. What's it called? Lewis Black is actually, Lewis Black? Is that his name, the comedian?
Who are you thinking of? From, Comedy Central? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he's in it.
He used to be on the Daily Show, Colbert Report, and
he's on the. Black is in the movie, and he's one of the little people in her head. And I feel like that one of those little people just fucked with you so hard. They were just like, you know what? We're gonna give him the right one. We're gonna give him the right one, and we're gonna fuck with him.
Because in my head, 9 doesn't make any sense. As someone who doesn't watch the show, right?
But in Doctor Who, it does.
Like just the idea of like, you know what? 9, and you're like, no, that makes sense, and I'm like, fuck you. That shouldn't. Why not?
It wasn't supposed to. It just happened, you know. But yeah. So the 9th Doctor, just the general idea that you can start it wrong, and you probably would, and other people would too. I mean, if you told me, hey, like you could tell me, like, oh, watch Scrubs, right? And I'll watch it from the first season, and then I'll finish the show, and you'd be like, so how did you watch it? I'd be like, well, I watched the 9th season, and you'd say, nope, you did it wrong.
No, and it's funny because, like, even using that example, right? That's like me telling you to watch Scrubs and you start with the 4th season.
Mhm.
That's why it's funny.
Most definitely.
Because he started with
or
the
I start with the
book,
9th,
right?
Right.
And he was really
what's
confused.
funny is he didn't start with the 2nd. He started with. I mean, it could have been the 2nd, but I feel like he started with one of the last ones.
Yeah,
he started with
right? Yes.
Because he saw the coolest covers. And I will admit, it's a bit of their problem because they didn't put like a part 1, part 2 thing, which is really funny because that just happened today, actually, where I was hanging out with Liz, right? And Liz and I, one of our podcasters, actually, who I'm currently doing Doctor Who with.
Time a couple of days ago. Was it last night?
we did Doctor Who, actually. No, on Wednesday. Which is really funny. We did Doctor Who.
Today's
and,
Thursday.
Exactly.
So it was yesterday.
Yes.
I just like to be
know
right
what
about things.
You know, we were supposed to do this on Friday. That's why I'm thrown off.
No, I know, but it just completely fucked me up. It was yesterday, right? No, it was Wednesday. Today's Thursday. That is correct.
Correct. But anyway,
like,
so here's what's relevant, Satish. The idea of Rob Zombie, who, by the way, great director. Rob Zombie's film House of a Thousand Corpses is you've seen that movie, right?
Mhm.
The prequel to it is The Devil's Rejects.
I was going to make a joke. The prequel to it is The Apartment of a Thousand Corpses, actually. Getting a house in New York is hard. Don't
do that to me. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. We already have David Arquette facts.
I swear to God, don't you dare.
By the way,
I can't make a fucking joke on air without you acting on it. I sit there and I push the David Arquette shit, and you're like, you know what, Satish? I'm going to go on top of you pushing it another level. And actually,
seriously, everyone at DAQ Facts, FACTS. David Arquette facts. Every day you get your daily David Arquette facts that are fake, but true, but fake. Oh, God, I have to promote that now. But anyway, so...
no, I'm just saying, like, if you're going to do it, then you promote it.
Yeah, but anyway, so, like I was saying,
I don't take credit for your art and your Photoshop.
I love I think of Dr. Evil doing the quotations from Austin Powers. Art. But anyway, so, okay, so we
credit. But no.
Right. We have House of a Thousand Corpses, and the prequel is The Devil's Rejects. a lot of, no, I don't say a lot, but there are people that don't know this. I mean, I didn't even know this until about a year ago. I just thought, oh yeah, 2 different movies, Rob Zombie, whatever. Because think about it, right? Even though it's like, well, if you look at the cover, they will, there's the characters from House of a Thousand Corpses. It's like,
funny,
yes, but
I actually didn't know this
they don't,
either. So
that's what I'm saying, because they doesn't have the same name. And it's not like, believe me, it would be weird to say House of a Thousand Corpses too. Right? I have to admit. It would be weird.
Telling you, Apartment of 1,000 Corpses, totally fucking
House of 2,000 Corpses. But it's just House of 2,000 Corpses.
They're back
the prequel.
and there are more of them than ever.
House of 500 Corpses.
That's what I thought, like Apartment of 500 Corpses. I'm so
all right, yes. So, yeah, it's just the idea that, it's a prequel, but you don't know because of the title. So, so I understand that. In the way Steven looked at those books. And he was like, I looked at the one that had the best cover because he looked at the books. And from what I remember, it just had the different names. Like, It's a Bad Day. It's a New Beginning. So it's kind of like, which one do I start with? So I'll give that to him. I will. Mm-hmm. I'll give that to him. But it's still really funny because it feels like me trying to get someone into something. Where it's just, so what Sentai do I start watching? What Kamen Rider do I start watching?
It's cute because, Connie's really passionate about that stuff, just like you are. Where,
but she's young.
I totally understand
so she doesn't know it yet.
Connie's the type of person who's going to be podcasting with us if she existed in real life.
I'm happy you put that qualifier on there. I'm really happy you put that on there. I got a little worried for a second. I was like, guys from Mount Sinai, come on down.
Yeah, no, because I want to make sure. It's like, no, we don't podcast with imaginary people. But
I feel like the car is driving around your house and just peers in whenever you say shit like that.
I think it's funny. It's circling and it tries to veer in. It's like up, fuck. He made sense. Damn it! Why?
Is it weird that we're listening? Is it weird that we're listening to this and our, with? Is it weird that we're listening to this on our mobile devices through Blog Talk Radio?
How do
John,
you feel
why
about
did you look
that,
out the window?
How do you feel about that?
If there's anyone from the NSA listening, we have people listening. I still feel.
That was spectacular.
But anyway, all right. So,
Hi, we want to thank you for listening. You will find no useful information here.
Unless you're fans of Steven Universe.
In which case, please stay. Then you'll find lots of useful information.
Yeah, apparently. By the way, I don't know about you, but when I heard the rumbling, trying to get back to this fucking episode, when I heard the rumbling, I thought that was Connie at Steven's door. I know they weren't going to go in that direction with this show. It's pretty real in the sense of the humans just being human. But the way the shaking worked after the look on her face, I thought, oh God, she just became the Flash. She's at Steven's door. Steven, we need to talk about these books.
Oh, so
weren't I calling your house phone?
That made me laugh so hard, by the way. Just the idea of he basically calls I need help. Why doesn't this make sense? You read the third book first. But I liked the idea of Garnet basically saying, right after that, we basically could fight these things off, but I really don't fucking want to.
Yes. 2 episodes in a row of Steven giving some great advice, yet some of it being a bit more direct, let's say, where, he was a bit more, I will admit, in the last episode, he was a bit more, I guess, I don't think of the word, flowy. That's what I think of when I think of his words. But in this one, it was a lot more articulate, yeah, which is what I wasn't being. But he was definitely very direct.
That sounds like the goddamn episode of Black Dynamite when Snoop Dogg was a pimp.
Oh, my God, let's not even talk about that. Yes, I do, but let's not even talk about that.
We did Black Dynamite. Just the idea of, when I was born and I could barely make it out the womb, y'all thought I was dead. And then when I was 5, my dad tried to drown me in the sink, y'all thought I was dead. And then when I was 12 and he buried me 6 feet under in a coffin, y'all thought I was dead. And then when I was older and I needed a kidney and all you pimps were matches and none of y'all would donate, y'all thought I was dead.
I love the idea that...
Which is the opposite of what y'all will be now, which is dead.
Oh, my God.
And I fucking lost it.
Oh, thought I
it was
dead.
one of my
like, I love
favorite
Snoop so much.
Ever.
Yeah.
It was the worst thing in the world. But that's all I thought about just now. Like, you're right. She was being articulate, which is the opposite of what I was being, which is not articulate.
Okay.
I'm like, God damn it, Matt, stop.
But anyway, so this is why Steven's great, right? Because, yes, in the last episode he's being articulate. But in this episode, he was being very direct, right? He was being very direct. And I think it was such a
I don't know. I think they're cool, Peridot. What? Are Stevens the new dominant race on Earth?
Well, not that, though that was beautiful. No, the idea of him looking at Garnet. What?
I nearly spit out my drink when she was like, are Stevens the new dominant race?
I know, yeah, because he's a kid, so he doesn't understand. It's like you have to explain to her, there are certain names that people will call each other by
and then
as titles.
Peridot's an adult, so the switch around is like, what is the meaning of these symbols?
Oh, my God. Yeah, no, we'll get into that in a second. I really like the idea, right, of Steven being direct and having a very simple answer, and for Garnet. But it's still the smartest answer. That's the thing. It's direct and simple, but the smartest. You need information, right? You need information? Ask. The Gems are so used to fighting that that's just what they do. Fight. But Steven is just like, hey, how about we ask? Like, we just check where we wait for it to move, and we see where it's going. And of course, as you mentioned, Garnet just being like, well, we could do this, but I'd rather not. Because it is a lot of fucking time to just sit there and just keep on fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting. So it's like, yeah, no fighting. No worries, we're good. So,
I totally get that. So.
Yeah. So I will admit, though, it was sort of a damn it, Steven kind of thing where he just comes out and he talks to her.
No. Like, I think that was a bad idea, but it was definitely like a...
Yeah. It was smart. Here's the thing. It's a good idea had Steven been 30. What he knows now, at 30, in terms of the person that he is, like just older, I feel like he would say, hello, I am Steven Universe of Earth. You know, to be like, oh, all of you are Steven Universes? No, that is the title that we refer to as, like, I am Steven Universe. I am a human of Earth. Like something where he just walks up down because he's 10. It's like, hi, I'm Steven. And it's just... And Peridot doesn't get it because it's like, last I checked, they were called humans.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's never, from the looks of it, never really been to Earth, I would assume.
No, right? It was just that one experience when she was there. So this was all kind of confusing to her.
Yes.
And something we haven't even mentioned this point because we've been messing around. They were trying to reactivate the kindergarten.
Yeah, no, she is trying to destroy everything. And, also, by the way, my notes was the Crying Breakfast Club sticker, as you mentioned. But which is hilarious. Also, the idea that, and I want to say two things before we end, but I'll start with this, and you can talk to me about this. Peridot seemed confused at the term crystal gems. So there's a weird chance that maybe things have changed on their home world.
I don't think that.
Because, okay.
I think crystal gems is something like the Avengers.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do you understand what I mean? Where Peridot is a gem, but the crystal gems is like an Avengers moniker, where she's like,
okay,
to the crystal gems. Because remember, she's also new and futuristic, so this is all new to her.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. The idea of things have changed.
If you call Peridot a gem, she knows.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. They haven't changed like that. Okay.
That's the way I think it was. That's what made sense to me.
No, you're right. You're right.
Oh.
You there, Satish?
Yeah, no, there's just no argument. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay. No, I agree. I understand.
Damn.
I'm sorry. I disagree. We should fight to the death.
That's more like it.
There we go. Also, before we get off, I want to mention, I really enjoy that when they need to write, let's say, hard-hitting dialogue, they can. Because I was really into Pearl's speech a lot.
Oh, man.
Like Pearl's speech. Yeah, Pearl's speech.
Just like, we are the crystal gems.
Like,
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like,
we are Earth's defenders. And I was like, wow. It's like, I'm into this.
Yeah, and this was a big, I think we would have been more excitable and, excited about it had we podcasted, the night that this came out. Because this was a big story development. Just the idea of, okay, so the gems are confirmed, rebels from their home planet and enemies of the directives of the whole planet.
Right.
That's a huge development. Just
we'll mention this as we'll mention this as we go on. But I think we've even said in the past when little things like this have happened, it just feels really nice to feel like
validated.
We kind of got what we validated. Thank you. I was thinking of vindicated. I was like, that's not right. Validated. It just feels really nice to feel like we got it. You know, like we, and not like we as in you and I, but just generally that general consensus of what?
Nothing.
Okay. Just general idea of just feeling like
I made a Dora the Explorer reference.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense. I heard Spanish, and I was like, well,
yeah.
Oh God. Well, I did. Backpack. But anyway, yeah, I really just enjoyed the idea that we were able to get this right, and the idea that we weren't overthinking. Because sometimes you'll hear people who don't watch or who are still kind of in the beginning, like, guys, you're all overthinking this. Not that to underestimate. Not to say that Steven Universe is lesser than to really think, but they'll say it more in like just they don't really understand. They don't get it. They're underestimating Steven Universe, and specifically Rebecca Sugar, who I can't believe I didn't make the reference before that she does Adventure Time, or at the very least did, but I assume she still works on Adventure Time, which is also another one that a lot of people enjoy and do have these themes that are a bit more expensive, like Steven Universe, but still stay in that, oh, hey, children can watch realm. Like, it's not like children can't watch, But, yeah, so I really, enjoy that we got it right, that a lot of people got it right, and that we're able to see it go from here, that it's not just, oh, yeah, they're aliens, and then never really reference it. Like, no, we're going to have alien encounters. We're going to have, this idea that, oh, it's not like they're the last of their kind. Because you and I thought that at one point. But that was one of the things that we were wondering. We're like, or at least I thought it. We're like, I'm wondering, like, are they the last of their kind? A bit like the Doctor was at one point? Or did they go to war with their kind? A bit like the Doctor did at one point. With the idea of generally the Doctor.
Yeah, a reference to the Doctor. Find out.
At 11:30.
Hey.
This is Those Guys. Bum, bum, bum. But anyway, so, yeah, we're here at the end of our show. But overall, what would you think out of these two episodes? I know, right? Out of these two episodes, which one do you think is is there one that was weaker or more powerful, or do you just look at them both and go, wow?
I think what was interesting is that, God, name is escaping me, the second episode.
Yes.
Marble Madness.
Marble Madness,
right. I think was interestingly weak for a story episode for me, and I say this because their story episodes usually punch me in the face. This one felt more like a light slap, and that's okay because it was still a good episode. It's just like I'm spoiled.
Also, I think this was for any of us, because we're podcasting about this later, right then when it aired, and for any of you, and this is not a joke, just being serious, in the archives are watching it, I assume, marathon style. So you don't really see some of the air date stuff that they were working with. But I think this is what started off the full week of Steven Universe episodes, right? Airing.
No, not yet. I don't think so.
Really? That's frustrating. I assume that it did because that would make a lot of sense.
No,
to why it was
I could be wrong. Because I think there was more going on.
This was episode 44, and it ended at 52, the first season. So I think you're right. It didn't start just yet.
I think it was like another one.
Yeah, but they did air them a bit more. I'll say this much then. They didn't air this one and then stopped for about a good 3 months. When they aired this one, they had the full intent of airing another one the next week and the next week. So they had this thing going of it was a bit weak, but they had more coming. It was kind of a taste. It was like, here, have a little taste of this. You'll get more later. And I think, we'll see that as the show goes on. A bit more. Like this isn't just the end. It's not just like, oh, well, that's it. Let's wait till next season or next year to see what happens with all this Paradox shenanigans. So they come a lot sooner than you think, and the pace really picks up. Speaking of, I mentioned Sentai and Kamen Rider before, the idea of, Japanese superhero shows. I really feel as if with certain Japanese superhero shows, because they have that 50-episode limit, or at least they go up to 50 usually, 52 or 48 or whatever it is, once it hits episode 39, 40, that, even though it's a weekly show, once it hits 39, 40, that's when you start to see the pace pick up, and you realize, okay, we're at the end game, is what they call it. We're at the home stretch, the last 10. And then you get to see how everything starts to really pick up, and end of the world, end of the universe shenanigans start to occur. The villains start to bring their game up and everything like that. So you can definitely see that in Steven Universe as well, I feel. Like, it's getting to that
I believe
point.
it.
Yeah. But anywho, so we're at the end of our show. I do see your point. The first episode was definitely a bit stronger, even though it had less plot. I liked the second episode, but it was definitely lighter, which was fun because of the Connie Stevens stuff. So it kind of felt like an out of nowhere thing, like the idea of maybe everything's nice and there's farmers and everything's chill and we're all good. Oh no, what's that space pod? Crap, it's Raditz. A bit like that, like crap, what's going on here? So a little bit of that, but it wasn't as powerful, I guess. But I get that. So anyway, as I said, end of our show. We would like to thank you guys for listening to Those Guys. I'm going to talk about some of our social media accounts before we head on off. We have ourselves a website, which is thoseguysontheradio.tumblr.com, which you can check out all of our older shows and newer shows on there. Shows being things like WWE Raw, Gravity Falls, other Steven Universe podcasts, Gotham, Arrow, Flash, Black Dynamite, as Satish mentioned, Mike Tyson Mysteries, Pokemon video games, Doctor Who podcasts, Supernatural podcasts, and a lot more that I can't think of right now. We have a lot on there. ThoseGuysOnTheRadio.tumblr.com. You can also ask us stuff, or just give us general feedback, but also asking questions is great. You can ask us about, any show that you would like us to do, any future show. Say, hey, guys, do you maybe like this show? And we may. And if we don't, we could experience it and podcast about it. So you can ask us that on our website, also at our Gmail, thoseguysontheradio@gmail.com, where you can also talk to us about different promotional opportunities. If you want us to promote your band, your product, anything like that, so long as it's legal, you can talk to us and we can come to some kind of agreement. Also, other ways to listen to us, you can also, find out about our future episodes, which is Those Guys on the Radio, which is our Facebook / Those Guys on the Radio, and our Twitter @ThoseGuysRadio, where we'll also have funny pictures on there as well as updates on shows. Also, our Instagram / Those Guys on the Radio, and on iTunes. You can check us out on iTunes by searching up Those Guys Radio or Those Guys on the Radio, and we will pop up in the podcast section. Also, as we mentioned earlier, David Arquette facts, really fun but not true David Arquette facts. So my God, can't believe I did this. DAQFACTS. Dax facts, apparently, which sounds weird when said aloud. If you @DAQ facts, check us out. One David Arquette fact per day that is completely real, but it's not. We're at the end, Satish.
Sounds good.
We're here. Yeah. All right. So, going to end the show. And any last words, Satish?
That sounds a lot more dramatic than it needed to.
Say goodnight, Satish.
Good night, Satish.